Hello people, it's Captain Trucker here at the Bureau of Immigration. Welcome back to the channel. So I had to extend my visa because I've been here over 29 days and I actually forgot, so I'm technically late. So we'll have to beg for forgiveness and hope that they grant me another extension. But I just want to clarify some of the exaggerations and misconceptions that some vloggers have put out about the extension process. We'll be right back. Well, some exaggerations, some true, but stay tuned, I'll be right back. So maybe I'll take this channel in a new direction. I was thinking about renting like a condo, like some high-rise maybe in Makati or maybe in Cebu or something, and I'll start eating at like really nice restaurants, and I'll have somebody else cut my hair. I'll stop cutting my own hair. And I'll start wearing like different shirts every day, and I'll make sure they're pressed, and I'll kind of just walk around the city and speak in a very lofty way. And so I'll come from the West and live within my means or beyond my means. You know, that's interesting though, the perception of that McMillionaire thing, that whole thing of, you know, Westerners going to developed countries and like projected an image of richness and all that. There's dicks in my face. So yeah, everything at the Bureau of Immigration kind of went, for me, basically as before. I mean, nothing really has changed. Like I said, there was a lot of drama this year about them being more strict on visa extensions for tourists and whatnot. But, you know, again, as long as you're following the law and not doing anything stupid or illegal and pretty much here for the reasons you say you are, it really shouldn't be a problem for most people. But maybe some of the other issues are you know, you get foreigners that grotesquely overstay their visas, or maybe they try to come here and work and stuff like that. So obviously they don't want to be encouraging that type of behavior. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty run-of-the-mill standard stuff. You get your initial 29 days for free when you first get to the country, like if you're a US citizen, and then you can extend it another 30 days, I believe. And then after that, it's every 2 months. So you can do it in 2-month intervals. But if you go to the Bureau of Immigration in Manila, and not one of the satellite offices, if you actually go to the one in Manila, you can apply still for a 6-month extension, okay? But you have to do that in Manila. But anyway, as usual, you know, just be polite and be courteous, because you know, people sometimes forget that the immigration workers themselves, the officers and those people, they have a lot of discretion whether or not they want to extend your visa, okay? So there is stories of people being rude to immigration people, being rude to them in the offices, and they won't extend it, you know? So you got to be careful with stuff like that. You don't want to be a foreigner like with a bad attitude. I mean, I went in there when I just did it, and there was a guy in front of me. Actually, he looked Eastern European, but he had an American accent. But anyway, I could tell he was like passive aggressively, like a little bit annoyed that he had to pay a late fee. Okay, so if you overstay your visa, you obviously have to pay a fee. I had to pay 1,000 pesos because I overstayed only 3 days. But this fellow was kind of like, oh, hey, excuse me. He goes back to the clerk and goes, can I make sure there's documentation on this or somewhere I can read about this fee? You know, basically like telling them he doesn't necessarily trust them, and like they might be ripping him off, so he wants to read something in print. It's like, dude, like, give these people a break. That's not the way to do it, man. And then he's like, oh, did I get a receipt for this, by the way? And he wasn't like overtly rude or anything, but I could just pick up on the subtle vibe that he was like irritated or he was annoyed. But again, you know, I don't understand like these attitudes, like people that overstay their visa and stuff. I mean, I've heard stories about guys that will overstay like even past 3 years, okay? Like overstay a long time. and it's like some 60-year-old man, and he got with like some 20-year-old Filipino, and he lived in a bamboo hut, and then he's gonna actually complain that he had to pay a visa fee. I mean, how entitled do you get? You know what I mean? I mean, like, you're out of control, like you need help. But you get some of these attitudes here, man. That's what I'm saying. And maybe some of it's to do with age. Like, you know, when men hit a certain age, I guess they're just tired of life. They're tired of everything. So I guess they just feel like they're entitled to the world. But it's like, dude, you're not home, partner. Like, you know, you're a foreigner in a foreign land. Show some respect. You don't just get to say and do what you want, man. That's the way it goes. Hello. So, you know, the Filipinos are so kind about welcoming us people. We got to show them the same courtesy, okay? So yeah, if you overstay that long, you can get into like trouble, possibly blacklisted. So it's highly recommended you just stay up to date on your tourist fees, or, you know, even do visa runs if you have to. You can temporarily leave the country or go to Thailand or like Indonesia, or go to Guam and then come back. They call that like a visa run. But yeah, so I paid 3,040 pesos for my extension, plus the 1,000 pesos for my late fee. And that's, you know, that's fine. It's the way it goes. But I don't know why I kept, the past 2 times, man, I showed up like 2 days late. I really just forgot. But they're totally nice about it usually. Yeah, that's pretty much how it goes. I mean, I know there was a lot of stuff that was being said earlier this year about the rules changing and all that, or that they were rather becoming more strict. But to me, from my perspective, the experience is basically the same. The only difference I'm noticing is, like I said, you got to do it every 2 months now. And if you get your ACR card, which I believe you can do after the 2nd month, some people can do it online, okay? But I think you need the ACR card to do that, from what I understand. But apparently the online database is kind of iffy, so it might not work for some people anyway. So you might have to show up to the Bureau of Immigration regardless. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, man, I mean, a lot of leniency, so like don't push the envelope too much, you know, for you guys doing your tourist extensions and overstaying and whatnot, because you can still stay in this country up to 3 years by extending your visa every 2 months. That's still possible. Now, that's kind of a long time. So, you know, like somebody like me, I spend part of the year in the US and part of the year here. You know, it works out fine for me. Like, I'm not even sure if I'll ever get an SRRV one day, because I mean, I like to travel. I like to go places. I can't stay in a spot for more than like 2 or 3 months. I mean, I want to go to other countries and stuff, man, especially at that time in my life. But you know, the SRRV is kind of a big investment. I mean, you have to deposit a lot of money into a foreign account, which in theory should be okay, but you know, I've also heard kind of iffy stories there. But anyway, so, you know, I myself personally could afford to live in like Makati or a high-rise in, I don't know, Cebu City, BGC, whatever, but we're gonna choose not to do that, okay? We're gonna choose to have variety in life. The Live Like a King campaigns, the problem with that is it's still gonna attract like the type of colonial wannabe tourist that comes here, complains and tries to change the culture, tries to not adapt, but basically tries to play colonial king. That's the issue, okay? So it's not so much about net worth, it's not so much about what one can afford, it's more about we're trying to seek a higher spiritual purpose, okay? Now, we're all guilty on some level of materialism and all that kind of stuff, okay? It's not whether or not, you know, your purchasing power goes farther in these countries. That's one of the benefits, right? So our dollar converts to pesos, and many living expenses are significantly less money, such as rent, and if you want to build a house, such as construction, labor, various types of material, concrete, wood. The same with food. Food is like a fraction of the price out here. In general, yes, most the stuff is less expensive here, so that's part of the appeal. Now, what was I gonna say? I had a point to this. Oh, one thing that's not less though is like utilities, specifically electricity in these countries. It's a whole different, it's almost the same as like the US, okay? So you're not gonna save money on electricity out here, okay? All right, so my point about this, they call them McMillionaires. It's like somebody either on a modest net worth or income or an above average from their home country, such as the US or somewhere in Europe or something. They come to these developing countries because they want to live like materialistic wannabe kings. Because some of them go nuts, you know? Some of them start doing things maybe they shouldn't be doing, maybe not the best things for these cultures. But yeah, man, it's really about adapting to foreign environments, right? It's like that's what we're learning. You know, that's the part we learn from, is that when we're learning to live a different way. If you're gonna go live in a high-rise in Makati or BGC, like why the hell just go back to Manhattan? Go live in Los Angeles and do the same. I mean, what's the point? To go to a developing country to just want to live the same material life at a fraction of the cost? What are you really learning? There's something to be learned from simplicity and reducing one's material life, and that's what I've been trying to talk about for a long time on this channel, okay? In variety, okay? So I found that like if I spend more time in the provinces and then I go occasionally, like maybe once a month, spend a week in like nice hotels or go down to the beach in some nice resort, see, then you appreciate it. You appreciate like the richness of that material environment and that synthetic high you get from it. The problem is when you stay there too long, you get jaded. I've seen it happen to a lot of people. It happens to people that live in like middle upper class neighborhoods. It happens like growing up in the suburbs. You know, you hear about, you know, like the kids in the suburbs would always complain that it was too boring, you know, too predictable and so forth. So I think like, you know, one of the keys for us expats and travelers is to like always be changing environments if possible, okay? It kind of keeps you fresh, it keeps you on your toes, and yeah, it prevents you from getting stale, because that can happen. And when you take those occasional trips to like the nice resorts or the nice hotels or the nice restaurants, then you can appreciate it more. It's human nature. Like anything we have indulgence of too much, it doesn't matter what your income is, it's like you get jaded by it. It starts to affect you mentally, okay? So it's not so much about where you can afford to live and how you should use your dollar, you know, it's like if we start learning mentally to adapt and to change, we can grow from that for like our characters, you know, spiritually too. It can bring us more peace. It takes away some of that, I don't know, some of those distractions, the noises. And, you know, sometimes people think like, oh, they want to surround themselves with like high functioning people, right? So that's why they want to live like in a rich neighborhood or something. But, which can be true for certain types of people that may attract. But some of the time you're also just attracting, again, those groups of the material middle class Joneses that are just doing it because that's what they think they're supposed to be doing. They're not learning anything from it. There's no real value in it. That's what makes it superficial. That's what makes it fake. And you can spot such people by even their depth, you know? There's a certain lack of depth that you get when you get jaded. It's happened to me. It happens to a lot of people, you know? It's like I couldn't stay in the provinces too long either. I'd be like, geez, I gotta get, I'm waking up, you know, all these roosters, and there's all these like, you know, I'm seeing the same people in the neighborhood, like, you know, a grown man chopping bamboo sticks out in the field. It's like that's all he does every single day for years on end. Yeah, like you can kind of get bored of that, you know? And so it's fun to like mix up your environments a little bit. But we all get guilty of that. Like we're all creatures of habit. It's just human nature. Even us travelers, even less expats, people that get outside of the box. We do still get, yeah, outside the box, son. We still get trapped in these routines and we become these creatures of habit. So it's always like something we got to work towards, you know? But anyway, that's just what I think about it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What do you think about keeping up with the Joneses, being a McMillionaire in the developing countries, how you want to approach your environment? You do see kind of that stuff a lot. I've seen that a lot, like even in the provinces. I mean, I see people build houses like I knew this one guy, he built a pretty nice house and he had his Filipino wife. He didn't have any kids, but he had like 3 bathrooms. And apparently, or 3 or 4, and according to them, having like 3 or 4 comfort rooms was like this major social status symbol of accomplishment. And you know, if you had 3 or 4 bathrooms in your house, boy, you really made it. You were the envy of the neighborhood. You were the envy of all Americans and all foreigners because you had 3 bathrooms. And then he goes around telling everybody and his mother, anybody that would listen, didn't matter who you were, you know. Hey, do you know I have 3 bathrooms? Hey, I got 3 bathrooms. He'll tell the tricycle driver. He'll tell another expat. He'll tell any Filipinos that will listen. I mean, it was amazing. So that does happen. There is a syndrome called the Western McMillionaire. It is a real thing. It's something to be mindful of, folks. Okay. I gotta go comb my hair. Okay, I'm done. But it's understandable the conditions that, you know, some men choose to live in. I mean, you know, they're used to having perfect insulation. They don't want to see a crack in the wall or maybe see a gecko in the house. They might see ants, and they don't like the look of dilapidated buildings. It's just not a good look.
Daddy?
I just want to surround myself in
Daddy?
luxury. Yes,
Daddy,
son.
can you open this?
Son, we're going to go become McMillionaires and go live in the city. What do you think?
Yeah, Daddy.
No, we're not. I'm just kidding. Yeah, son.
I want to have an ocean color pencil.
A what?
Ocean color pencils.
Okay. How about we go live on the beach? How about that?
But I want to have a color pencil.
It's hard to define and exactly put my finger on it, but I go back to the days I used to work, like I do this contract and temp work, like an accountant work, for instance. And I worked at all these different corporations, like up in the Bay Area and even in Houston, Texas, a few other cities. And you know, I would work at big corporations and then smaller ones, or biotech companies and other well-known companies. And it was all good, but there was, it's so hard to explain, but there was a certain synthetic commonality that was shared in the corporate culture that I can't emphasize enough. And I'm seeing the way certain groups like that are trying to change these developing countries with their influence, you know. And like I've said, like neo-social media colonialism and so forth, it's a real thing. It's happening before our eyes, and it's very subtle. And we don't realize the profound effects that we're having on these countries as vloggers, as people, as tourists, as expats. And I'm not saying I have all the answers. I'm not saying I know all the answers, but I think it's good that we have a sense of clarity and depth and purpose and meaning and all that to our channels and to our message. So it's pretty much all I can say. But anyway, it's Captain Trucker. Thank you all so much. You all be good out there. Bye-bye.